My name is Nicholas Hagger. I'm a British poet, man of letters and literary author. In a literary career of more than 50 years, I've written over 40 books, and I've been awarded the Gusi Peace Prize for literature. I believe because I'm the only Western literary author who has advocated a peace-bringing world state. I first had this vision of the future in the 1960s. When I left Oxford, I lectured in English literature at the University of Baghdad in Iraq, and I became visiting foreign professor at 3 universities in Tokyo, Japan, for 4 years. In 1966, I visited China at the start of the Cultural Revolution, and then Moscow. In the Kremlin's Cathedral of the Archangel, I had a vision of a coming world state, and put it in a poem on communism, Archangel, which refers to a world lord. That was 50 years ago. In this cathedral tomb, the archangel became a shadow with a sword and wings outstretched, and I saw in the second icon the future of the West. Decades of contemplation show in their white-haired peace, as, trusting to perfect feelings, they value each equal they greet, until, whispering on silence, they glide to the leaders' hall, their hearts with a world lord's wholeness at the centre of life of all, their hearts where all past and future meet. I went on to lecture at the University of Libya in Tripoli and was an eyewitness of the Gaddafi revolution. 27 years old, Sandhurst military officer. He came to the university shortly after the revolution and a couple of times. And in fact, the second time, my students let us down by rushing towards him and flinging their arms around him and kissing him, which he hated, and he was flung up against me. And I had his head on my shoulder with his military cap while they fought to get the situation back. And on my way back from Libya, I visited the poet Ezra Pound in Rapallo and discussed epic poetry with him, the tradition of Homer, Virgil, Dante and Milton. I eventually became a war poet and wrote 2 classical poetic epics in blank verse, Overlord, written from 1994 to 1996, about the end of the Second World War, from D-Day to the fall of Berlin, and Armageddon, written in 2008 to 2009, about the War on Terror. In both these long poems on war, there's an underlying longing for world peace. My 2 epics are subtitled The Triumph of Light and The Triumph of Universal Order, and the summary of Armageddon, Book 12, refers to vision of coming world government, dream of world state. I'm struck that Virgil, in Book 1 of the Aeneid, wrote of a Roman Empire without limit, which happened after his lifetime, and that I, in my 2 poetic epics, have written of a coming peace-bringing world state and world government that will not happen until after my lifetime. As a man of letters, besides my 2 poetic epics, I've written 2,000 poems, including over 300 classical odes, 1,200 short stories, 5 verse plays, including The Warlords, Parts 1 and 2, a masque, selected diaries, 3 autobiographies, and 2 travelogues, one on the Libyan Revolution and one on Iran.
And this Montgomery, who beat Rommel in North Africa and Italy, is now poised like some agent of the divine to strike and repay me for my cleansing, but I do not believe in a moral universe.
Our first location after landing at Saint-Croix-sur-Mer was a totally unsuitable place for my attack HQ. It was a crossroads between fields with German trenches and under artillery fire.
In my works, I've embraced universalism, which regards the universe as a unity. I underwent an inner transformation in Japan, and in my poem The Silence, I wrote about my hero's descent into an underworld and his return with an instinctive perception that the universe is a unity. And in that 4-sided garden, rock and sea and sand, mountain and cloud and earth, mirrored in an empty mind, reveal a refutable truth between stone and stone in an arbitrary frame. There is no difference, all is one. Still or moving, all existence is the same. An Eastern sage tempts. Plus A plus minus A equals nothing. The absolute is where there is no difference. In my literary universalism, I identified the fundamental theme of all world literature as an alternating quest for the one and condemnation of social follies and vices. My universalist approach has taken me into other disciplines, including history and international politics. In both, universalism sees humankind as a whole. I've written a study of the history of all civilizations and cultures, and in The World Government, which came out in 2010, I saw the world as being governed by a democratic world state and an elected world government that will represent humankind as a whole. Many great men in the 20th century have called for a world state, including Winston Churchill, President Truman, Albert Einstein, President Eisenhower and President Gorbachev, and someone needs to be standing for this vision today. I'm the only Western literary author currently continuing this tradition. As I see it, the UN General Assembly, or UN Parliamentary Assembly, can be turned into a democratically elected lower house of 850 representatives in a partly federal world government that includes a World Senate of 92, a World Commission of 27, as set out in my book, The World Government. The UN would become a United Federation, or UF. Such a federal world state would be able to enforce disarmament and round up nuclear weapons and material and abolish war. You can find further details in my recent works. See my website. I'm indebted to the Gusi Foundation for supporting my vision in my literary works of a coming UN-based world state that will bring in a better, more peaceful world for our grandchildren.